Others, particularly those closely connected with the North, saw a military campaign as the key to victory and expected it to pass through 3 critical stages. In the first phase of the revolution, with the National Liberation Front's insurgents greatly outnumbered by Saigon's army, the task for guerrilla units would be to survive in the face of government attack. Safe base areas would be created as defensive sanctuaries and as springboards for small-scale guerrilla attacks. In the second phase, the insurgents would deploy larger units and would seek out bigger battles. The opposing forces would be more evenly balanced, and under relentless pressure, the enemy would become defensive and static. In the third phase, at the key moment when the NLF became stronger than the government army, they would launch large-scale assaults against enemy installations and seek out decisive conventional battles. This phase, the general offensive, combined with uprisings in the cities and towns, would bring the downfall of the Saigon regime and the reunification of Vietnam. While the revolution was in its early phase, the NLF meant to build up its organization as fast as it possibly could. Political agents founded dozens of associations to bring every kind of support into the movement. There were associations for women, farmers, students, and workers. In less than 2 years, the front claimed 300,000 members. At the same time as it built up grassroots support, the NLF meant to intensify its military operations. Bigger attacks on government forces would gain the movement prestige. Meanwhile, intensive training and preparation by North Vietnamese officers would forge the Viet Cong into an efficient and formidable fighting machine. As the NLF tightened their grip on the countryside, the South Vietnamese army began to behave exactly as the guerrillas had expected them to. They grew increasingly defensive, staying in fortified posts and never venturing out after dark. Battles only happened when the guerrillas chose, and the army suffered a steady drain of casualties. By now, there were 900 American military advisors in South Vietnam, charged with building up and training the South Vietnamese armed forces. They were appalled by the Army's dismal performance against the guerrillas, but saw no reason why the South Vietnamese shouldn't be able to cope. What they wanted was a much more aggressive approach. American advice was that the Army should get out on mobile operations and find the bigger enemy units. The Civil Guard and militia could look after local security. The Americans developed a counterinsurgency plan, supposed to better coordinate the different forces, but progress on the ground was painfully slow. While the handful of American personnel struggled to improve the situation inside South Vietnam, in Washington, military planners worried about the external threat. The fear was that North Vietnam, or even China, might take advantage of the South's weakness. Already, with the approval of the White House, a contingency plan had been drawn up for putting in American combat troops if an invasion looked imminent. If North Vietnam or China looked likely to invade the South, the American contingency plan, Op Plan 32, called for rapid deployments. A Marine Expeditionary Force would be based at Da Nang, an Army division near Saigon, and another near Pleiku. Another division might be sent to bolster Thailand. If the invasion actually happened, U.S. forces would be increased by another 3 divisions. Aircraft carriers and land-based bombers would be positioned for massive attacks on North Vietnam, while amphibious, airborne, and ground forces would mount a full-scale invasion of Northern Territory. By now, the guerrilla war in South Vietnam looked so dangerous that American military planners believed the country might collapse even without a northern invasion. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, the President's military advisors, argued that the best option was to implement Op Plan 32 anyway and put 3 divisions into South Vietnam. The first 20,000 men would show the United States was serious. They believed the rest, up to 70,000 troops, would be enough to clean up the guerrilla threat altogether. Although the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, was in favor of sending in troops, President Kennedy had no desire to embroil American soldiers in an Asian guerrilla war. But neither could the president afford accusations that he was soft on communism. In November 1961, Kennedy approved a compromise plan drawn up between McNamara and the Secretary of State, Dean Rusk. Phase 1 of the Vietnam Plan would see a big increase in financial support for the South Vietnamese Army. The number of American military advisors in Vietnam would be raised to over 3,000. More American equipment would be sent, including helicopters, 300 pilots to fly them, and maintenance personnel. For the time being, the President put off a decision on the second phase, the possible deployment of American combat troops. By the end of 1961, the South Vietnamese Army was being expanded to 200,000 men. South Vietnam also had Marine units, a small air force flying American aircraft, and a Navy for coastal patrol. As well as the regular armed forces, there was the 68,000-man paramilitary Civil Guard and various local militia.